it. I love this. Hi, you guys. Good evening. Man, there is no place I'd rather be on a Saturday night than here in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. I hope I can go off the cuff. Do we have any veterans in the house? Do we have any veterans? Right on. Thank you. Thank you for your service. You know, I hope and pray that my message carries depth and weight. And I want to welcome the newcomers. Hey, Tehachapi, man, I'm going to have to run into you down in Tehachapi. I don't see you. So we're going to have to hook up. So I want to welcome all the out-of-towners and Chicago. Right on. That's where Sylvia Kay's from. She's a pioneer woman of AA and one of my faves. So I am Naomi, and I am an alcoholic. So where do I begin? You know, we talk about what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. I'll tell you, I was born in Pasadena, raised in Torrance by a single mother. I have an older brother, and we were poverty. We were poor white trash, let me tell you that. And I grew up with not much. And as a young girl, I was bullied. We didn't have alcohol or drugs in the house. Mom was very loving, but she worked and went to school. I'm going to see if I can do this better there. She worked and went to school my entire life. And being bullied as a young girl, I was a tomboy. I played baseball, and I'm a roller skater. I've been a roller skater for 50 years, and it's never going to leave me. And I love to play softball. So that's how I spent most of my days, was roller skating or playing softball. No drugs, no alcohol, you know, latchkey kid back in the 60s and 70s, those of you that know that. And even going into middle school, high school, I was just a loner. You know, I would go to school, I barely got out of high school, barely. And so my first drink, so that's kind of my youth. My first drink was at 17 when I went to, I was at Rolling Hills Covenant, and I went to Rolling Hills High School back in Palos Verdes. And my first drink was at a party, and it was Lowenbrow, peppermint schnapps, and Southern Comfort. So and we used to drive, I would drive in my friend's car. She had a 280ZX. And if anybody knows Palos Verdes and those windy roads, we would drive, and she would haul butt around those, and I'd be like, pull over, I'm going to throw up, you know. I drank alcoholically from day one. Now, I didn't know what that was, but I know what it is today. So my story is going to intertwine the big book and my life. So I am a drunk. And as Bill says it, I am an unlovely creature in my cup. And when I picked up that first drink, I commenced to forge the weapon that would turn in its flight like a boomerang and all but cut me to ribbons. Oh, how true that is. And I see it today. So the first drink, I drank, I got drunk, I blacked out, passed out, and came to. That's how I drink. That's how I've always drank. There's no moderate drinker. You know, I mean, I drink so fast that the ice doesn't melt, right? When we got those drinks, they're like in cups this big, and they shove all that ice in there, and it's like, and it's done. And I don't drink slowly. No, I need one, and then I not only drink tequila sunrises, but I have a shot of tequila on the side. So I drank alcoholically from the age of 17 to 29. I'm also a drunk driver. I drink, I drive, and then I black out, I pass out, and I come to. And a lot of times I would lose my car. You know, I would lose my car. I'd be like, I do not know what I grew up in Torrance, so I would be down in Hermosa Beach. Anybody know Hermosa Beach? Yeah, the poop deck. I was going in there when I was 17. And then we would skate the Strand and stop at every single bar. Now, drugs are a part of my story. So for those of you Nazi alcoholics, you are going to hear about drugs, okay? So cocaine and meth were my choice. Those were my choices. So the whole time I would drink, I would either wake up in a bush. I've been shot. I've woken up in a mansion in Hollywood, and then I'd wake up and I'd say, I don't know who or what that is, but that's the kind of drinker I am. I am an unlovely creature in my cup, absolutely. So I couldn't hold down a job for my life. For 12 years, I would have a job, lose a job, have a job, lose a job, show up at the job, lose the job, not show up to the job, lose the job. I think the longest I had employed was maybe 3 months. So when I went to get cleared to go into juvenile hall a few years ago, they told me, why don't you pull your Social Security record? And so I went there, and the woman there gave me this as a gift. She says, I'm not going to charge you. It's usually $100 and something, but I'm not going to charge you. And so when they pulled the report, I'm like, dang, they're still printing pages out. How many pages do I have? I had 5 pages, front and back. I had over 50 jobs in 12 years. I couldn't hold down a job. I was a dysfunctional alcoholic. And I'm a drunk driver. When I calculated I've had 3 DUIs, people. 2 of them were back to back. And the same police officer pulled me over in both of them. The first one, I was like, please, officer, don't cuff them too hard. I'm scared to death. Well, he didn't, and I was able to slide my hand out and sit for the drive to the jail. And then when we got to the jail, I slid my hand back in. And then, of course, I went to the drunk tank, and I got out the next day. 2 weeks later, the same police officer pulled me over again. It was in Garden Grove or Newport Beach, somewhere Orange County. And he's like, oh, you're not getting away this time. And he must have clasped those so hard that I think I lost blood. So, I go to jail. I have 2 DUIs in 2 weeks back in 1983. And I get a 3rd DUI when I moved back to Redondo Beach. And January of 1990, somewhere in there, I get a 3rd DUI. This time I know I'm going to jail. And the judges actually made sure that I knew that. I have to go back. The first 2 DUIs, I worked at a bar in Garden Grove called Sugars. And the owner knew a judge in Orange County, in Newport Beach, where I had to go to court. And I went to court, and they called me into the judge's chambers. And he slapped my hand and said, don't do it again. That did not help me. So when you get away with something, it's not helping you if you're an alcoholic of this kind. So needless to say, 6 years later, I get another DUI. This time, I'm in Redondo Beach, and I have to go to AA. So the first meeting I went to, there's a lot to my drunk story. We all have it, right? The incomprehensible demoralization, all of that. And I don't share a lot of a drunk-a-log because we all have got them. The biggest thing is the recovery. So for those of you who have never been in recovery before, please listen. I have an understanding of what it means to be sober, and I have an understanding what it means to be in recovery. That's part of my story. So I show up at Torrance Lamita Alano Club on July 11th, 1990 with my cute little court card. And of course, at 29 years old, you have to show up with your mother because you can't drive because your driver's license is taken away. You don't have a job. You have no place to live. You're sleeping on your mom's couch. And that's where you have to go. So Mom and I are sitting at this meeting, and they've got the square table, and they have this blue book. I saw it. It was open, and they're reading. And Mom and I are sitting on the back, and I'm like, at about 15 minutes in it, I'm like, Mom, how is this going to help my drinking? How is this going to keep me out of jail? When we were about ready to get up and leave, they closed the book. I was like, okay, let's stay. And so then, in that time, I became the Torrance Lamita Alano Club Miracle Child. Let me tell you, That was the last time I opened up that book for 17 years. Okay? So I know what sobriety is. I absolutely know what sobriety is. In the meantime, my story, boy meets girl on AA campus. That's when they had the dances back then. And so I was at the Birch Club, and I met him. Tall, dark, Italian, and handsome. That's the prerequisite for somebody who doesn't know, right? He had 6 months, I had 3 months. And we were a match made in heaven. Oh, my goodness. Needless to say, he and I got together, and he said that I got pregnant. And I was like, okay, no problem. We had a beautiful little girl. In 1993, my daughter was born. And he and I, the gentleman I was married to. He was not that when I first came into the rooms. He was not the gentleman. There were a lot of other names that I had for him. However, because being in program, my language has changed and my behavior has changed. I no longer behave drunk, sober. Okay, listen to that, ladies and gentlemen. I no longer behave drunk, sober. So he and I get together. We're just a couple with a young baby, and for 15 years, money, property, and prestige come our way. We started out as a concrete pumper, working for a company, and in 15 years, going from $15,000 a year to $150,000 a year, 2 children. We moved from Lomita to Temecula. And Temecula, we moved there to build beautiful homes. We're in construction. And needless to say, I'm there sober. I moved there in 2000. When did I move there? 1998, we moved to Temecula, and that's when my son was born. So I have 2 amazing children. I have a boy and a girl, and I had a dog, minivan, white picket fence. We owned our own business. I had arrived. We leave Temecula to go to Tehachapi to build a shopping center. And needless to say, I go there with 17 years without a drink or a drug. I didn't have 17 seconds of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. So why am I still alone? Why am I still feeling like I'm less than? I go to church. I was going to church, and oh my goodness, the ladies there thought I was a plague because I'm a recovering alcoholic and addict, and they didn't want me near their kids, the little churches that we were involved in. So I always still felt less than, even with 17 years without a drink or a drug. I still felt less than. And I still had those expectations. You know what those are? Resentments. Because expectations are premeditated resentments. And today I understand I cannot control anybody but the little 2-foot square that I stand in. So we moved to Tehachapi. We build a multi-million-dollar shopping center. And in the meantime, I'm trying to lease out the building. I'm trying to get Fresh and Easy, Starbucks. I didn't care who I got in there. I was trying to get somebody in that shopping center. You have to have an anchor in a shopping center. And I could not find one. So the gentleman and I said, oh, you know what? Let's open up a billiards. I'm like, okay, because I shot really good pool back then. And that's how we met. We would go shoot pool and on our dates. And so we start to build this little billiards club that was just supposed to be chip clip and ham hocks. You remember those bars, right? The little dive bars and smoke-filled rooms. And he's like, well, we need to have food. And I'm like, okay. And then he says, well, we need to have alcohol. I'm like, what are you talking about? I didn't know that I was an alcoholic, but I knew that alcohol and I had problems, right? I'm like, well, I'm an alcoholic, you're a drug addict. I don't think this is a good choice. He's like, you're fine. I'm like, okay, just beer and wine, because I don't drink beer or wine. I'm a tequila drinker. I'm a hard alcohol drinker. I do not like beer. It's too filling and all the bubbles. And wine was my first choice, and I used to get so sick. I drank the best wine, Almaden Mountain Nectar. Right? Oh, man, those hangovers were horrific. And I every time I drank, I would throw up and I would be shaking and then I'd be sweating for 2 to 3 days and I'd be like, okay, let's try it different. Let's do something. Let's not do the red wine. Let's do the white wine, right? Almaden still. And oh gosh, I can taste that wine and that sickness, that gut in my gut, the horrible throwing up. Oh man. Ooh. Does anybody remember that? You want to go back to that? Oh, no. No. Headaches that were pounding out of my brain. I thought my eyes were going to pop out. So I say, okay, just beer and wine. And in 6 months, we open up. It was supposed to be a little tiny, like, Red Wagon. Let's use the Red Wagon as the example. It turned into a 5-star sports and billiards club with a full restaurant, full bar, and turned into a red Corvette. I mean, shiny, sparkly. It was beautiful. It really was. It was called Legends, and it was an absolutely gorgeous place. I do not know why we opened it up in Tehachapi. Those of you that know Tehachapi, it did not fit. It should have been like in Beverly Hills somewhere. It didn't go with the terrain. It was a gorgeous place. It cost us $500,000. The shopping center was ours, and we had arrived. Well, I hadn't drank yet. You hear that? Yet. You know what that means? You're eligible too. So I would tell the girls, I had a bottle of vodka on the back with a little sticker on it. And I told the ladies that if anybody wanted to buy me a shot, that you use that bottle. And so they did. And then when the gentleman I was married to got wind of that, he's like, Naomi, you need to drink. We're not going to make it. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He says, you're fine. You have 17 years. Remember, I didn't have 17 seconds of that big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. So, of course, I thought, you know what? I'm older. I'm wiser. I have 2 beautiful children. I own a multi-million-dollar shopping center. I'm the room mom, the team mom. I have a boy, a girl, a dog, a minivan. Well, it turned into an Suburban. And I'm the talk of the town. And I'm like, you know what? So at home, it talks about in the book, it talks about the whiskey and milk, right? That was my relapse. I went into Albertsons and I purchased a bottle of Bailey's. That's whiskey and milk in my book. Took it home, got a cute little glass of ice, and poured it on the rocks, and took a sip, and that ease and comfort just went right down to my gut. Needless to say, those of you that know what Bailey's is, 70 pounds later, 3 bottles a day, and now I hadn't started the side dishes yet. I drank, so I relapsed after 17 years. I picked up the drink again. My choice. Doesn't matter that the gentleman said, you're fine, you have 17 years. I made that conscious choice to pick up that drink. He didn't force me. He didn't shove it down my throat. I could have said no, but I didn't. So I take full responsibility. I also take full responsibility for knocking that cup of coffee over. You didn't do it. I did it. I just knocked it right on over. So, I pick up the drink, and we have this beautiful bar. I'm going to the restaurant. He buys a brand new Harley Davidson, and every time I left, I would have the girls pour me a big tumbler, a styrofoam tumbler full of ice with Bailey's in it. It took the whole bottle, right? And that was my drink on the bike. About, I'd say 4 years into my relapse, I was introduced to meth. I had never done meth. I did cocaine back in the 80s. You remember that. It was on every single coffee table. It was like a candy dish, right? It was a candy dish of cocaine. It was crazy back in the 80s. Don't get me wrong. I had some really fun times in the 80s. I did. But the majority of them were bad. So I pick up this drink. I now have a multi-million-dollar shopping center. I have a 5-star sports bar. I'm working 18 hours a day. I have 50 employees that want to drink on the job and give the alcohol away, and it's stressful. So we start to fail. The shopping center started, the restaurant started to fail. The business partner wanted out, didn't want us in there, didn't want a family business in there. So we're going through a lawsuit and with a family member who was a partner in the shopping center. And we get through this lawsuit. We lose Legends. They don't want us in there. The bank takes the shopping center back. Legends closes down. We strip the place. We have about $10,000 in cash. The gentleman decides he's going to be the storage war king of Bakersfield and Lancaster. Man, do you know what it's like to be on meth and go through boxes? Oh my gosh. The next 2 years was hell. We must have bought the first few lockers were great, man. There wasn't a sock in it. I swear, when you get a storage locker, if anybody's done that, usually there's a dirty sock somewhere, right? Every single one of these lockers was like pristine. We even bought a locker from an ex-deputy sheriff, and the wife had a dance studio. We bought 3 lockers for $6,000 and lived off that merchandise for the next few years. I'll tell you, the longer it went, the worse the lockers got. And then we started to get we were going, those boxes. Then he started to bring them home, to my home. And then the clothes came in. And then the junk. And then it was put it from this box to that box, take it out of that box and put it over in that box and put it, it was hell. And I was drinking, when we closed the restaurant down, I had 2 gorilla shelvings with alcohol. One side was the well and one side was the premium. Well, I started on the premium side, right, as we closed. So at first I drank all the tequila, then I started to drink all the vodka, and then when that went away, I started to drink the whiskey and the rum, because I'm a tequila drinker. Then when that went away, I started on the well. And then he decided he was going to sell all the alcohol. I was like, what? No, you can't sell that. Literally, I came home and it was gone. He sold all of the alcohol to some liquor store in Bakersfield. So I'm left with trying to scavenge money to go buy one of those handles of vodka so that I can calm my withering nerves from the side dishes that I had. Needless to say, we're losing everything. Everything's going downhill, and we're going to Bakersfield to the dealer's house, and he decides he's going to park right in front of the Hells Angels club with his car, with this big moving truck, hideous thing. And so the guys come out and they're like, whose vehicle is this? And he thinks he's tough. I'm like, dude, you're like a puppy compared to these guys. Please be quiet. Don't say anything. They'll take you out. So he moved the truck, and things are going downhill. Weapons are involved. When you get in that deep into this stuff, it is not pretty. And by this time, my daughter was in college. She didn't see what was going on. My son weathered most of the abuse, and he was 15, and he still was at home. It got so bad the last 2 years that I finally had to file for divorce. It was so bad, the verbal, mental, emotional abuse. And when you're deep into those side dishes, you get shadow people, and you get voices, and then you see the sheriffs outside with laser rifles right on you. You swear you're seeing it on the wall. Oh man, that is hell. And then trying to drink that away. One time I was outside. He's like, you have got to go outside and catch these people that are stealing from us. And I'm like, what are you talking about? So he made me go downstairs dressed in all black with a loaded gun, 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm sitting outside down on our property and in this little hovered up little corner with my loaded gun, and I fall asleep. And then I wake up and I come in the house and I'm like, what happened? He's like, oh, I came back in here hours ago. I swear I do not know how I am not dead. I really do not know how I'm not dead. On June 7th was my last drunk, 2015. I was at the doghouse, you know the doghouse in Tehachapi. I was there, and that was my last drunk. I woke up in a hotel room next to him, someone. I don't know who he was. I woke up and I said, hey, could you please take me home? And I was sick. Of course, I had to grab my bottle that had vodka in it because I was shaking and sweating, and just the horror and remorse of the following morning are unforgettable, right? So I go home. I file for divorce on July 8th, 2015, and June 8th, 2015, and then June 9th, 2015, I stumbled somehow into the Tehachapi Mountain Group. And that's my sobriety date today, June 9th, 2015. And this beautiful woman right here, Debbie, has been a part of my life since I got sober. Ladies and gentlemen, please, when you see a newcomer come into the rooms, come up beside them. You remember what it's like when you were brand new and broken and lost and confused and scared and shaking and thin and homeless or penniless. This is exactly what this woman did. When she saw me, she's like, you know what? This poor girl's a mess. I need to scoop her up and help her. And that's exactly what she did. And we've commenced shoulder to shoulder our common journey since. And what I'd like to say is at 6 months sober, I always have these props, always. These are the 2 books that Debbie bought me at 6 months sober. And she took me to Herb K's Big Book study in Culver City, where I opened up this book, this exact book. It is literally falling apart. My books are falling apart. My life is falling into place. We opened up the book on page 1, where I had my spiritual awakening was when I got into the doctor's opinion. Step 0. Oh my gosh. I developed the phenomenon of craving when I drink. There's no off button, right? The only way I could get to step 1 was to read the book. So when we say we thoroughly follow our path, where's the path? It's in the book, right? And it's being guided by somebody who is full knowledge and has a working knowledge of this book, which Debbie has. And so I open up this book and I read the preface, I read all the forewords, I get into the doctor's opinion, and he tells me that our body and our mind are different. I was like, oh my gosh. And if you leave out the physical part of alcoholism, you've left out a big part. Because alcohol, soon as it touches my lips, there's a switch that goes on, and then I have to keep drinking until I black out. That's how I drink. Oh my gosh. I admitted I was powerless over alcohol. How is my life unmanageable? Well, let's see. You wake up in bushes, you get shot because you're trying to protect the drug addict that you're dating, and you grab the gun and you pull it down and you get shot in the leg, right? You wake up next to people you don't know how you got there. You lose your car. You can't find your keys. You don't know what city you're in. You lose 50 jobs in 12 years. My life is unmanageable. Right? So I have there's no reservations about me being an alcoholic. I do not drink safely in any form whatsoever. So, step 2, I like to go through the steps. Step 2, I came to believe in a power greater than myself, right? That he could restore me to sanity. Well, the God of my understanding from that church that I went to, I thought, there is no way this God is going to love me any longer because I relapsed after 17 years. So why would this God even want anything to do with me? Well, let me tell you, the God of my understanding came back bigger, badder, and more powerful. And I truly believe the hand of God wrote these books through Bill Wilson. Thank you, God, for bringing Ebby Thatcher to that kitchen table. Thank you, right? And to give him that push of, well, hey, Bill, man, why don't you use your own conception of God? Because people come into the rooms broken from religion. So I don't share religion in the rooms. I share the spirit of the program. God, gift of desperation. Boy, I had desperation. God, a group of drunks. God, good orderly direction. God, the great outdoors, right? Such a powerful message. Well, I did come to believe in that power again. And the sanity part, people think, well, this is my own interpretation. Insanity is not doing the same thing over and over again. Insanity, if you look it up in the dictionary, it's mentally ill. We are ill. I am definitely ill. I was definitely mentally ill when I got here. And sanity is soundness of mind. I've become healthier because I have recovered from that seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. You remove the alcohol, I'm left with Naomi and all the mess that comes with it. Alcohol, covered all that stuff up, but it was always there the next day. It never left. And then I made a decision to turn my will and my life over to this God, right? Do I constantly mess up? Yes. How often? Almost daily. However, if I just open that door ever so slightly, my God meets me again. So the steps I work in order. You work them off here, you're going to have a program off the wall. Okay? Because the steps are outlined in the book in an order that's not like this. You have to get through preface, doctor's opinion, Bill's story, there is a solution to more about alcoholism. That's the first step in recovery, right? Then we go to we agnostics. That's helping you find that God of your understanding. Step 4. Everybody is afraid of step 4. Why? When you're in program and you're in recovery, you've already done all that stuff. We're not adding to it, right? So when we get it down on paper, it's getting it out. Debbie used to share with me, you'd go from here, down through your heart, out your arm, and on the pen and onto the paper. Remember that? She used to tell me that all the time. This girl would take my calls. When I was brand new sober, she would come pick me up at the house I lived in that didn't have this demon house. And she did not judge me. She would come pick me up, and I would have to go outside to the breaker box and flip all the switches off and then lock the breaker box. That's how bad I was when I first got here. And she's like, baby, you do what you got to do. Whatever you got to do, you do. She loved me unconditionally with all my insanity, with changing my phone number 45 times because somebody was following me. They're like, did you change your number again? I'd be like, yeah. Oh, brother. They just kind of went with it. But she never judged me. So step 4, I've looked at, and we also talk about what my part was. No, I highly suggest you read it. It says, where was I at fault? Where am I to blame? I don't look at the other man or woman in what they did. I don't look at what the gentleman I was married to did to me. I've been able to forgive that man because I've worked those steps thoroughly, and I realize he was very sick man. So we get to step 5. We're going to admit our faults to God, myself, and to another human being. It's awesome. 6 and 7. 6 is I'm writing down the character defects. 7, the contrary reactions, right? I'm going to ask him to remove the hate, the anger, the rage, the jealousy, the procrastination. And then 8, I made a list of all persons I had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all, right? I made lists. I made 3 cards. Since this time, I got a sponsor. Her name is Debbie Davis. For those of you that know her, she walked me through the steps, traditions, and concepts in 2.5 years. And I had different cards for different amends. I can't make the amends to my brother. He committed suicide prior to me coming into the rooms. The gentleman I was married to called me. I called him after a 6-year divorce. And 9, we make direct amends. I couldn't talk to him for 6 years. When I called him after our divorce, I said, congratulations on our grandson. He said, Naomi, can you help me get into recovery? It didn't even skip a beat. The responsibility declaration came into play. I am responsible when anyone, including the gentleman I was married to, anywhere, Needles, California, reaches out for help, right? I want the hand of AA to be there. So what I did was I told him, come on, Joe, come to Tehachapi. We'll go down to Bakersfield. We'll get you into Good Samaritan. And then we couldn't get him into a bed, so we sat on the front lawn of Good Samaritan Hospital in Bakersfield in 100-something degree weather. And I went over to Chick-fil-A, and I'm sitting on the lawn with him, eating Chick-fil-A. If you would have told me I would have done that 6 years prior, I would have said, maybe with a sledgehammer in my hand. But no. The program kicked in. I then got a room with him because we couldn't get a bed that night, so we went to a hotel with 2 fulls, and God said, Naomi, now is the time to make your amends. I was able to say, Joe, I apologize. I regret the things that I did, the things that I was responsible for. I never once looked at him. And he said, Naomi, you are a good mom. You're a good person. I'm proud of you. So 10, I continue to take personal inventory, right? These are not maintenance steps. These are growth steps. 10, 11, and 12 are we continue. We improve. We continue. We move forward. 12 is my favorite step. Talk about commitments. Commitments are sweeping the floor to being the speaker getter, the librarian, the literature, to I started out as a coffee girl and my little doily issues that I had because I had to make all the meetings look really cute, to being of service. I am part of hospitals and institutions in Kern County. I'm the co-chair for Kern County H&I. I am also the liaison to Southern California H&I. It is the best thing that has ever happened in my life. I have never stepped into a prison. I've never spent time in a prison. I've never been into a recovery house. I've never gone to treatment. However, I have a message of hope. So I go into the Tehachapi prison on the 1st and 3rd Wednesdays, and I talk with these men, and I let them know that they are human beings. We've all made bad choices. I just haven't served a prison sentence, which I should, because if I calculated my DUIs, I should have 610 DUIs conservatively over the 12 years I drank. I don't. I am so grateful for the life that I have. Driving here is nothing, man. It's a piece of cake. My boss understands that my recovery is the most important thing in my life, and I was able to help my boss with his sister who died. She was sober, but her body just broke down, and it couldn't withstand everything that it had been through. I'm of service to those that are about me. I love my life. How much time do I have? 5 minutes. I got 5 minutes. I owe my life to Alcoholics Anonymous, and as I shared, I always love to read 2 things out of the big book. My favorite lady, Sylvia Kay, in Keys of the Kingdom, I don't have the book in front of me. It says something to the effect of, AA is a plan of recovery that cannot be finished and done with. It's a way of life. And the principles contained in it will keep a man striving for as long as he lives. We cannot outgrow this plan as arrested alcoholics, right? And then Dr. Bob, love this book. I love this book. Everything I've learned has come from these pages. Dr. Bob's Nightmare, and this is Naomi, and I change one word, so bear with me. I spend a great deal of time passing on what I've learned to others who want it and need it badly. I do it for 4 reasons. 1, it's a sense of duty. 2, it's a pleasure. It's an absolute pleasure to be of service. 3, because in doing so, I'm paying my debt to the woman who took the time out to pass it on to me. 4, because every time I do it, I take out a little more insurance for myself against a possible slip. I want to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart to allow me to share my experience, strength, and hope. And Randy, thank you for asking me. He asked me back in June, and I put it on my calendar, and I was looking so forward to coming out here. And to my friend Debbie, who came up alongside me and showed me the way. She showed me what we do for the newcomers, and I now pass that on to my ladies. So thank you so much.